All across the world, recently, governments have come together to attempt to restrict and ban social media for teenagers. Australia banned social media for minors younger than 16. The UK has announced they are planning to do the same. America attempted to do the same with the Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA, but now they're going forward with the Kids Act. On Monday, June 29th, the House of Representatives voted to pass the Kids Act and now moves on to the Senate. The Kids Act includes a package of regulations for social media and internet platforms requiring heavy restrictions on how minors are allowed to use them. This undoubtedly opens the door for age verification to now be required to use any platform on social media. These restrictions are meant to especially crack down on young people communicating over the internet by restricting their messaging abilities and giving parents overbearing control of minor social media accounts. In the following video, you'll see a first-hand story of how devastating this can be to vulnerable teenagers.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Youth Rights Podcast. I'm your host, Zane Miller, and today we're here with a young person who's going to be talking about their personal story and their friends' personal stories about how social media bans would negatively impact them because of, their life situations. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Otis. I'm from Colorado. I'm a 20-year-old currently in college.
Great. Just go ahead and talk about the story and how this is relevant to social media bans for young people.
Yeah, a little bit of background on myself. I am autistic. I have ADHD. The whole host of mental challenges, which in growing up made going out and interacting with people a really difficult challenge. I struggle with face-to-face connection, or did struggle. I'm a lot better at it now, I'd like to say. But in high school and in middle school, the only place I was really able to connect with people was online. I really didn't have those peer-to-peer connections in person, and I couldn't have them because it was a struggle. I feel like without that, my life would have had taken a very different path. Without those people there to support me online, I don't know how my life would have turned out. I feel like probably would have been a lot worse.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about when you first got into these online communities and when they first became an important aspect of your life?
Yeah, I think it was 8th grade. From growing up early elementary school, I was able to just make friends easier. There wasn't this whole social political space within the school that people, about.
Mm-hmm.
But in 8th grade, that really started to ramp up, and I wasn't able to keep up with it. I first went on to Discord. I talked with a lot of people on there. It was great. Found people with common interests, people who I played video games with, and formed really deep connections that I keep to this day. It's awesome.
So what would you feel like would be the impact on you if you never had these connections? Like, let's say there was a social media ban and you were never able to get on Discord, you were never able to have all these online communities. How would that have impacted your life?
I definitely wouldn't have been able to make friends. I was struggling with, stress, mental health issues in high school. Some bad stuff happened, but they were there to support me. I feel like it would have been a lot worse if I didn't have them there. I might have done irreparable damage to myself. It would have been really bad.
Mm-hmm. And do you feel like it was easier to build a stronger support system online than it was in person?
Yeah, I mean, my parents are great. I have awesome parents. They're an awesome support system, but I didn't really have anything beyond that. It was a lot easier to do so online because of a shared community, shared interests, and none of that political mumbo jumbo I was talking about earlier within the school.
Yeah, of course. So I know that you mentioned how you knew other people and you had other friends who were going through the same situations. Do you want to kind of talk about their stories and how they would be kind of negatively impacted in the same way?
Yeah, right now, I have this 15-year-old friend. We play video games all the time together. He is transgender, female to male, and his parents aren't very supportive of that, and neither are his former friends. He really found his place on these online communities with me, with other friends, and he struggles with mental health because, you know, his parents aren't supportive. He doesn't really have anyone to go to in real life. But he found a bunch of friends online. He has these 8 different people he calls his brothers, and he leans on them so much. It is so important to him to be able to have those connections. And if this social media ban were to go into place, he would have no way to reach them, to contact them. He'd be effectively cut off from all of his support networks. And I worry about him if that were to happen.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And that's one of the major harms of these social media bans, because a lot of these politicians push the idea that young people communicating with quote unquote strangers online is like an inherently bad thing, and they'll like artificially amplify these harms and say, oh, but like what about bullying? What about grooming? Stuff like this. But realistically, 99 out of 100 times it's not those things. It's what you're describing. It's young people going to an online community to seek connection with people who are similar to them, because the fact that that connection isn't available in their in-person life. Either if like you said in your situation, struggling with like a mental issue, like maybe like autism or something like that, it kind of like negatively impacts their ability to make friends in person. Or let's say they're in a school where they're getting bullied constantly and they feel left out. Or they may be like in a very rural area where there's not a lot of people around them. Or in your friend's situation where they're different in a way, like they could be transgender, they could be queer, and especially if the people around them in their in-person life are not supportive of them, because of the fact they're then going to seek that support somewhere else. And the internet is very important to that, because there is something for everybody. Like there's a community for every single thing, and you can get that support no matter what life circumstance you're in. So that's kind of one of the biggest harms, is cutting that off is basically forcing these people to only be able to have friends and connections and support from those in their in-person life. And like you've mentioned, a lot of the times that's just not simply like a viable option.
Another reason I think that cutting off the internet for young people in the way that has been described by Congress is this instant like cutoff. I can't express enough how damaging it would be to have these 8 people I support on, and then all of a sudden they're all gone. That would take such a negative toll on anybody.
Yeah.
Like that instant snap of everybody that you've ever known and frankly loved.
And that's that. Yeah, of course. It's like, I mean, if these go into effect and people like your friend have no way of contacting these people, if they're completely just essentially cut off 100% from ever being able to contact them again, basically practically that would be the same as losing those friends in an accident. Like let's say you have like 8 good in-person close friends, and all of a sudden like they all died suddenly, and that's kind of extreme, but you never be able to see them again, you never be able to have contact with them again. That's kind of the same thing of what's happening in the social media ban. If you have absolutely zero way of being able to connect with these people again, they're essentially out of your life completely, in the same way that it would be as if they died. So what people don't understand is they act like that's not a real issue, and they act like that wouldn't have an effect on people, and they act like, oh, we're protecting kids. But it's like, you're not protecting anybody. You're actually forcing them to go through basically grief, I would say. And one of the other things, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this as well, is how these acts like KOSA and the Kids Act are pushing like parental controls over minors' social media accounts. And they're basically saying that like in order for minors to be able to be on these social media apps, the parents have to have this like overbearing control. And a lot of the times for like certain social medias, that would be seeing all the content they would look at. And then for certain apps, being able to like see all of their contacts, see their messages, even be able to read their private messages between them and their friends. And that's very threatening for a lot of reasons. Like, how you mentioned with your friend, how they're transgender and their parents are not supportive of that. So then it gets into the problem of they talk to the other people that will support them, but if their parents are able to read that, to have complete control over anything that they are allowed to say to someone over the internet, obviously they would self-censor. Like they wouldn't just openly talk about being transgender and stuff like that, because of the fact that their parents are unsupportive, and they would probably, get the negative consequences from that. So it's just, politicians frame stuff as parents' rights, but parents' rights just means taking away rights from young people. And when a young person is in an abusive or unsupportive home, that can have devastating impacts.
Yeah, and I'd like to go even further on that. Like a lot of kids, a lot of people in general don't know that this bill is happening, that this is passing. I could imagine a likely situation in which a kid wouldn't know now that their activities are being monitored. So they just get outed to a group of parents that are frankly not supportive and abusive. I could see not only the harm from monitoring, but the harm from exposure.
Mm-hmm. Of course, yeah. And then, there's issues of other people's privacy as well, because even if you are a person with supportive parents, and even if, like, I saw this very interesting story, I'll throw it up on screen for the video right now, but there was a story where, this parent was using this device monitoring software to view all of the messages between their kid and, the kid's friends, and the kid was discussing something with their friend where their friend came out as gay, and the parent read the messages. The parent, not the parent of the kid who came out, but the parent of the other kid, read the messages because of the device monitoring software, and they outed the kid to everyone, violating that kid's privacy. So it's like, even if you have supportive parents, or you're not in a situation where your parents are going to overly monitor you, your privacy is still threatened by anyone else who may have access to this type of stuff as well. So that's another big harm as well, is just like kind of everyone, like young people just having no right to privacy with these companies, and with parents like having this overbearing control with the policies that the government's trying to push.
Yeah, I mean that it's dystopian. Like I couldn't imagine it where everybody, like my friends' parents, could see everything that I'm doing. That's a terrible world to be in.
Because obviously, I mean, you're not going to feel safe at communicating about something with someone when you know that the parents are just going to be watching over your shoulder. It's like, if, especially in situations where like the kid is talking about issues caused by their parents, like if you're being abused by your parents, you're not going to be talking to someone else about being abused by your parents when you know your parents can watch it. Like that's just kind of a simple thing. So again, it takes away that support system, because they really don't have a place that they can go to where they're safe from the stuff that's happening in their home life.
There's more anonymity over the internet that's not really there in real life. That makes it so for these types of issues, the internet is the only choice for which people can talk about it.
Yeah.
Like a kid wouldn't go up to, or anybody frankly, wouldn't go up to a teacher or somebody with authority that knew them well to talk about these issues, because there's more of a concern of immediate exposure and immediate bad things happen.
Yeah, of course. Do you know any like specific like stories or like instances of the type of like behavior that your friends' parents would do to them because the fact they're unsupportive? Do you want to like talk about anything specific?
They are physical towards him. It's not a good relationship. And his mom leaves out a lot of not very good substances that he gets into from time to time, in like substances that nobody should have.
Yeah.
And has kind of become reliant on them to relieve him from the mental torment and physical torment that his parents afflict upon him.
That's terrible. And, that's the type of thing that nobody should have to go through growing up. And that's like the type of stuff, especially from the parents, then, from the substances, that stuff's going to stick with you. Like that type of stuff, that's not something that just goes away. That's something that sticks with you for a very long time. And, being able to have a community and a supportive group of people to like help you deal with those issues is very, very important. And, a lot of times being online is like the only way to get that, especially, I mean, and like I also had, like when I was growing up, I had very strong friend groups over the internet and over Discord and stuff like that. And there were several times where I've had like people that I knew that I was close to over the internet come to either me or like other friends that, again, they only knew over the internet, about like very personal issues like this, like stuff with like substances or stuff with abuse or even, suicide related issues. And the first people that they came to were the people online, those people. And, I've talked someone out of ending their own life, someone that I've met online. And I think that without those communities and without these people to come to, it may have ended in a way where they wouldn't have gotten out of that. They wouldn't have been able to get through that. They wouldn't have been able to have someone to help support them and, be with them through those harmful moments. And that's the thing of why it's very upsetting when these politicians always like to base this idea on we're protecting kids, but you're not protecting kids. You're going to kill kids. Like it's pretty simple that this will only harm the majority of the people. Like the majority of young people will get harmed by these type of things, either something of where they lose their ability to make friends or they lose their only support system for the hardest struggles in their life. And especially with parents, because like they don't have another support system. Like in most states, you need your parents' consent to even be able to go to therapy. Like even if you had money, you couldn't even sign up for therapy without your parents' consent. So it's like the only support system they have is people they have online, because of the fact that
I would say, furthering this, another support system that kids might turn to after this is AI chatbots. They might, in place of friend groups, they might go talk to AI, which is not the best place to go. Real person-to-person connection is so important, and lacking that, people might do harmful things.
Yeah, that is an issue as well. Especially with these type of things, because and a lot of the times what also makes it a big issue is the type of parents that are the ones who are going to cause these young people severe mental distress, and the ones that are going to make it to where they have to turn to online friendships. A lot of the times it's also because the parents will like exert overbearing control over the friendships they're allowed to have in person. Like even if they're able to like make friends in person, usually the parents will like overly exert themselves over that to say like, oh yeah, you're not allowed to be around this person, you're not allowed to do this, especially like if it's like a homophobic parent or something that found out that their kid is friends with like a gay person or someone who's trans, to be like, you're not allowed to, because it's gonna like rub off on you. Like I've known friends who've come to me and be like,
it makes you gay.
Yeah, it's stuff like that. And because it's really harmful, and it's like, if you like, the parents a lot of times will actually cut off young people from the friendships in person. They'll make it to where, oh yeah, you're not allowed to go out, you're not allowed to go to this person's house, like you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that. So it's like, obviously the only place they're gonna go is online if they're not even allowed to have like be with their friends in person. That's kind of just like a pretty simple thing, and it's kind of giving parents, I would say, a monopoly on the connections that young people are allowed to have.
Yeah, it's not a good situation.
And question about your own personal situation. I mean, you said that online friendships was one of the best ways for you to actually be able to make friends in person when that became difficult. Would you say that making online friendships and having strong online friendships that you made growing up, would you say that made you like more confident and more able to make like end up being able to make in-person friendships, or is there not a correlation there?
Yeah, no, it totally, definitely, completely yes. It not only did it give me practice in talking to people and in a controlled, anonymous environment where I didn't have to deal with a bunch of the stuff that you have to deal with while being with people in person, it also helped me form connections with people online in the local area. Mm-hmm. Like, I was able to talk to people from my city over Reddit, for example, and make a bunch of strong connections with them before I went out and met them. Mm-hmm. There's absolutely a strong correlation there.
Yeah, and that's very important as well, about the fact that this is very useful to even allowing people to make like in-person friendships as well. And this happened to me where, I grew up having very crippling social anxiety, to where the fact that like once I made a strong friendship with someone, like it was very easy for me to like have that, and like everything was great, but it just, the process of making a friendship was very, very difficult to me, because the fact that I struggled in uncomfortable social situations. So whenever I was in like a situation with someone that I didn't know, or someone that I was very like uncomfortable with, I kind of like, because of social anxiety, like I would kind of shut down. It was very difficult to me, because I would always be like, my brain would start thinking about like everything awkward and everything weird and stuff like that. And one of the ways that online friendships help me like cope with that basically is because if anything ever weird or like uncomfortable or awkward ever happened in like a situation with someone online, it was always simple of just like, okay, I can pause, I can take a break, I can shut the device, I can turn off the phone for a second, I could like get my bearings, and then I could come back. I wasn't trapped there. But when it was like in person, I felt like I was trapped in the situation, and it made me very uncomfortable. So, and then being able to experience that and then make these online friendships, similar with what you said, gave me more confidence to be able to make stronger friendships in person.
I mean, for furthering that, person to person talking is more emotionally draining for me. There are a bunch of times where I get home and I'm like, I don't want to go talk to people. So what I do is I turn on Discord, Reddit, and I talk to people on there because that's so much easier and so much less taxing.
Yeah.
Right? If I wouldn't go out and talk to people as much as I do or as much as I did if I wasn't able to do so on the internet.
Yeah, for sure. And that's another big thing as well is, just for certain people, they socialize differently. And, that shouldn't be like punished from them because of like, being different about that. And that's a big issue as well, especially when it comes to stuff like certain like neurodivergencies and stuff like that. I mean, especially like young people who are disabled with other disabilities, even physical disabilities. I mean, if you're like a young person in a wheelchair, it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to like just make in-person friends. That's why a lot of the times people with neurodivergencies and like physical disabilities, they'll also turn to online communities and stuff like that. So that's another reason of why online community is like very important for young people to make like those like strong, healthy connections.
It's also more freeing due to the anonymity of it, right? Like there's a bunch of, I would be more myself online. I would be able to unmask, to borrow a term from autism, around people online in a way that I'm not able to in person.
Yeah, for sure. And talking about another group who's like extremely negatively impacted by this, I mean just like queer youth and LGBTQ youth in general. And not to be too conspiracy theory with it, but the U.S. government and the current administration is run by a lot of people who have been pushing the idea that wokeness, queerness, gayness, transness, gender identity, stuff like that is inherently harmful for young people. They're pushing this idea that it's inherently harmful. And there's been a lot of states like Texas and Florida where they've even banned this content from appearing in schools, and they're trying to like stop minors from having any amount of interaction with like this ideology. So by having KOSA and the Kids Act, we're forcing age verification, forcing identity verification to figure out who's a minor and who's not. And then because of the fact that now we then have this infrastructure of splitting people into two different groups, it makes it to where it gives politicians a wide open door to figure out, okay, what content can we censor all across the internet for young people? And I would not be surprised if states like Florida and Texas that are run by people who inherently view stuff like LGBTQ and transgender, gender identity as harmful, as inherently harmful for children, if after these acts went into place and they have this infrastructure of age verification, then saying, okay, no minor on the internet is allowed to be exposed to any amount of LGBTQ. It's like immediately censored. We're not allowing them to be exposed to this. And that would cut people off from support systems even more.
I mean, to be even more dramatic about it, this is a national bill. That could be implemented at a national scale.
Yeah.
The administration could say nobody in the US can post anything about queer or LGBTQ stuff if they're a minor, and cut off connections nationwide.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And it's like people say that maybe that's going too far to say, oh, it's like a slippery slope, but it's realistically not when you look at it, because the fact that it gives them the ability to do this. If you give them the infrastructure of saying, okay, now everyone on the internet has to be split into either minor or adult because of these other things, so these other restrictions like messaging restrictions and stuff like that, you're giving them the ability to then roll out more and more and more restrictions. And it's not even a slippery slope because we've seen it in full effect. Like it started with them being like, oh, we're just going to censor porn. We're just going to censor adult material, inappropriate stuff like that. And then it goes to, okay, now we're censoring social media, to now we're age verification across the whole internet. So it's not even a slippery slope because we've seen what one thing leads to another, what happens. So we've realistically seen this in full effect, and that is what is such a scary harm of this. Is it's bad now, it's bad what's going to happen, it's even worse what could happen and what they could do, and it is very reasonable to assume that this type of censoring, this type of stuff will occur in the future.
Yeah, it's not unlikely.
Mm-hmm. The people that are harmed the most by these social media bans and restrictions are the most vulnerable people, like people in abusive homes, queer youth, disabled youth, socially awkward youth who don't have a lot of friends, bullied youth who are ostracized at school and have no friends at school, so they turn to online. The people who are harmed the most are the people who are the most vulnerable. That is just plain and simple. And while they're saying they're going to protect kids, they're doing the exact opposite of that, and they're dooming so many young people to have to go without friends, without support systems, without community that they've been able to get for themselves because of having access to online communities.
The people that are most vulnerable are the ones who are often most attacked. And we're seeing that right now.
Yeah. And people refuse to treat this like a real issue. And it's unfortunate because a lot of the times when I see people advocating against these social media bans, they'll say stuff like, oh, well, we shouldn't have these in place because of, oh, they're just going to take everyone's data. Like, oh, this is why we shouldn't have these in place. And the parents should just be in charge of making sure their own kids aren't on the internet. And that shouldn't be the government's job. And like, well, yes, that shouldn't be the government's job. It shouldn't also be the thing of, oh yeah, the parents should be in control of that either. It's just people try to act like youth and like young people and teenagers just shouldn't have basic rights to free speech and like freedom to connect with others in the same way that adults can because of these artificially amplified harms of, oh, what if they get bullied or what if they get groomed or something like that, when it's like realistically, you know, like we said, most of the time they're having these positive experiences, but it's like you don't hear about that because nobody's going to want to read about, oh yeah, a young person makes a friend online and it makes them really happy. They're going to want to read about young person meets up with someone they met on the internet and got killed in a back alley. Like they're going to, even though that story happened one time and the good positive stories happen like a million times, people are going to want to read about what makes them upset. And that's such a big issue. And they take social media for granted. They take it for granted because they don't realize that they've been so immersed in the positive impacts of having a connected internet and a connected society that they're like, oh yeah, we can just take this away for kids because who cares? Like they don't need it. But having this connected internet is so important.
I mean, it even goes further. It allows youth to experience other cultures from other places, right? I could go talk to a European in Austria and have great connections like that. But if teens from the US are not allowed on the internet, I can't do that anymore. I can't learn and talk to other people from other places.
And, you know, there's also another issue with, like, information, like, sheltering and stuff like that. I mean, not just in terms of parents trying to control the relationships that young people can have and the friendships and the people that they're allowed to connect to. They control information. Like if you're in a very conservative, very religious household, stuff like that, where the parents won't want young people to be exposed to any amount of alternate viewpoints. Like if they're trying to politically or religiously indoctrinate their kids, you'd be like, you have to believe only this and you're only allowed to be exposed to this amount of information. The internet is a good counter to that because of the fact that it's so open information. Like it's people giving information to each other. Like that's what stuff like YouTube and stuff is. It's like people giving information to each other, people learning about things from each other instead of like one traditional source of media like it is with, you know, traditional media and stuff like that. And that's why that's also important, just so young people can have alternate viewpoints.
Yeah, for viewers like home, imagine that if the government said you can only watch Fox News now, like you would be super upset.
Yeah.
And that could happen to kids.
Pretty much, because social media, and then again, social media just is the main place where young people can exercise their freedom of speech. Like, young people can't vote. They can't run for office. Like if you're a minor, you can't vote. I mean, if you can't even like run for like being a representative until you're like 25 or so. So it's like, where are you going to be like trying to exercise your freedom of speech and you're trying to get people to hear your voice and hear your opinions? You're going to be doing that on social media. Like young people, they do advocacy through social media. I mean, like even in the UK when they did it, when they're trying to do a similar social media ban, NIRA was supporting teenagers in the UK organizing a protest against a social media ban that happened over the weekend. So that's the thing. It's like people use social media to advocate for themselves and to get their voices heard and to like be educated and to be exposed to alternate viewpoints and to be connected to others. And all of these benefits people take for granted, and they act like a few harms of social media is enough to overpower all of this in its justification to take it away.
I know, like where I am for sure, that a lot of people really want young people to be more engaged in politics, and that just frankly can't happen without the internet. There's no way for that to happen.
Mm-hmm. For sure. And that's just such a big harm that people don't realize. It's like, this is the way that young people advocate. This is the way that young people like want to get their voices heard. And it's kind of like taking away their ability to like know what's going on in the world, because like, yeah, you can watch the news, but it's like I feel like the news just doesn't have that like freedom aspect that social media does, because social media is people giving information to people, not like someone in a position of authority giving information to people on the couch. Like there's a very, very big difference there, especially when it comes to the culture gap of young people get their information from here and then the older generations get their information from here, and it's like it's censoring specifically for that. But yeah, I mean, there's so many harms to this, and there's so many ways that this can negatively impact young people. And I really, the right now, I mean, earlier today, we're recording this on Monday, the 29th, the KOSA, the Kids Act just passed the vote in the House, and it's going to go on to the Senate. So everybody just call your politicians, call your representatives, get in contact in the best way you can, and tell them to vote against this, because even if you don't support youth rights, you're going to force age verification for everybody. They're going to take the data, take the information of adults, and that's going to be at jeopardy too. And then like we've been talking about, they can it opens the door for them to be able to increase censorship and increase surveillance and stuff like that. So yeah, there's so many harms to this, and that affect everyone.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're a kid, you have a voice. You write an email to your senator right now telling them how you feel and how this will affect you. The kids' voices in this measure are being ignored. Make sure that yours is heard.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a good message to leave off on. But yeah, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for your story and everything. Is there any like last message or like last thoughts you want to leave off on?
I mean, thank you for having me. This is really important for me to share my story and be impactful in this way. So thanks for having me.
Of course. Yeah. And to everyone watching at home, the Kids Act, KOSA, all this stuff, social media restrictions, age verification, this just opens the door for so much more overbearing government power, overbearing government control. And like we've said, the main people that are going to get harmed from this are young people in vulnerable situations. If anybody watching at home wants to also share your personal story about how this would negatively impact you, leave a comment. You can email us at naira@youthrights.org to share your own story, and we can maybe have you in an episode of your own. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Thank you for taking your time to come on and share your story. And yeah, we'll see everyone in the next episode. Bye-bye.